The hospital called me at 5:14 inches the morning and asked why my daughter had already signed the papers to remove me from life support. I was still alive, still breathing, still listening, and my daughter thought I was dying, or maybe she needed me to. The nurse kept apologizing over the phone. Sir, there must be some misunderstanding. Your daughter said you were non-responsive after surgery. She requested emergency authorization documents. I sat there in my kitchen wearing the same flannel robe my wife bought me 15 winters ago. The coffee in my hand suddenly tasted like metal. I had surgery 3 days earlier. Minor heart procedure. Nothing life-threatening. At least that was what the doctors told me. But now, someone was trying to make decisions about my death before I had even recovered enough to drive. My name is Frank Delaney. I am 72 years old, retired pipe fitter, Pittsburgh, born and raised, and until that morning, I thought my daughter Emily loved me. The nurse lowered her voice. Sir, there is also concern regarding your financial directives. What financial directives? Another pause. Your daughter submitted paperwork requesting temporary control of your accounts and property during your recovery period. My stomach tightened. Emily never mentioned any of this. Not once. Now let me tell you something. When you get old in America, people stop talking to you directly. They start talking around you, about you, like you are already halfway gone. 3 months earlier, my wife Lorraine died from liver cancer. 46 years together, gone in 11 weeks. After the funeral, everything changed. Emily started calling every day. Not to ask how I was sleeping, not to ask if I was lonely. No, she asked about paperwork, passwords, insurance policies, the house, always the house. Dad, you really should simplify things now. Dad, this neighborhood is getting dangerous. Dad, maintaining a 4-bedroom home alone at your age isn't realistic. At your age, funny phrase. People say it like old age is a crime scene. I should have noticed the warning signs earlier. But grief makes you stupid. Not mentally stupid. Spiritually stupid. You stop hearing danger correctly. I drove to Mercy General myself that afternoon. Slowly, hands tight on the wheel. The November rain smeared the city into gray watercolor. Pittsburgh looked tired. I understood the feeling. Inside the hospital lobby, the receptionist recognized me instantly. Mr. Delaney. Thank goodness you're all right. That sentence hit me harder than it should have. Thank goodness you're all right, meaning someone expected otherwise. The administrator met me upstairs. Small woman, sharp eyes, too careful with her words. She slid a folder across the table. Your daughter filed these documents yesterday evening. I opened the folder. Temporary medical authority. Emergency financial conservatorship request. Do not resuscitate preference form. My vision blurred for a second. Emily had checked yes. Yes. Do not resuscitate. My own daughter. Now, before you judge too quickly, you should understand something. Emily wasn't cruel growing up. Not at first. She used to sleep on my chest during thunderstorms. Used to leave little notes in my lunchbox. Love you, Daddy. Drive safe. But somewhere between college loans and corporate promotions, something changed. Money started replacing emotion inside her. Like rust replacing steel. Slowly, quietly. Until one day you wake up and the whole structure is weak. The administrator cleared her throat. Mr. Delaney. There is something else. Yesterday, your daughter asked whether your cognitive state had declined since your wife's passing. I looked up slowly. What exactly are you saying? She hesitated. She implied you may no longer be mentally fit to manage your affairs independently. That one hurt. Not because I was angry. Because suddenly, all the little conversations from the past few months rearranged themselves in my head, like puzzle pieces locking into place. Dad, you forgot your pharmacy receipt. Dad, you seem confused lately. Dad, maybe you should stop driving at night. She had been building a case, quietly, patiently, against me. And standing there inside that cold hospital office, I realized something terrifying. My daughter wasn't preparing for my recovery. She was preparing for my disappearance. I did not call Emily that night. I wanted to. God knows I wanted to. But old men survive by learning one thing early. Never show your full hand before you understand the game. So instead, I drove home. Sat in my garage for almost an hour with the engine off, just listening to the rain hit the roof. Lorraine used to say storms sounded peaceful from inside a car, like the world was apologizing softly. The house felt wrong after she died. Too quiet. Like every room was holding its breath. Her slippers still sat beside the bed. Her gardening gloves still hung near the back door. I couldn't move them. People think grief comes like an explosion. They're wrong. It comes like fog. Slow. Heavy. It sneaks into ordinary moments. You reach for 2 coffee mugs instead of 1. You hear laughter in another room that doesn't exist anymore. I poured myself bourbon I shouldn't have been drinking after surgery. Then I opened the folder again. Every page made my chest burn hotter. Emily had listed herself as primary caretaker, temporary property supervisor, emergency financial manager, and buried halfway through the paperwork. One sentence froze my blood solid. Recommendation for assisted residential evaluation. Assisted living. There it was. The real plan. Not helping me. Moving me. Removing me. Packaging me neatly into some quiet little room where old men wait to die between bingo nights and medication schedules. My phone buzzed. Emily. Of course. Dad, why didn't you tell me you left the house today? Not hello. Not how are you feeling. That was the moment I stopped making excuses for her. I answered calmly. I went to the hospital. Silence. Long silence. Then, why would you do that? Because apparently someone signed papers trying to kill me. Another silence. Heavier this time. Finally, she sighed. Dad, don't be dramatic. Dramatic. Funny word. People use it whenever the truth becomes inconvenient. Emily shifted into that soft corporate voice she'd perfected over the years. You scared us after surgery. The doctors mentioned memory concerns and confusion episodes. Memory concerns? I forgot where I parked at Home Depot once. Once. That's all it takes when people want your independence badly enough. You filed a do not resuscitate order. Only temporarily. Temporary death. What a beautiful modern phrase. Dad, listen carefully. You haven't been yourself since Mom died. You're isolated. You're forgetting things. And honestly, I'm worried someone could take advantage of you financially. I almost laughed, because the only person circling my finances was her. Then she said something that made my skin crawl. We just want to protect the family assets. Family assets. Not family memories. Not family history. Assets. That was the moment I realized my daughter was speaking about my life the same way bankers discuss office furniture. After we hung up, I couldn't sleep, so I started walking through the house, room by room, memory by memory, until I reached Lorraine's sewing room, the one place I hadn't touched since the funeral. Moonlight spilled across her old wooden desk, and sitting there, half hidden beneath a stack of fabric patterns, was a small black notebook I had never seen before. I opened it carefully. The first page was in Lorraine's handwriting. If Frank ever finds this, then Emily moved faster than I feared. My knees nearly gave out. I sat down hard in Lorraine's sewing chair. The notebook trembled in my hands. My wife had known, somehow, before she died. She already knew what Emily was planning. The next sentence hit even harder. Do not confront her immediately. You must see everything first. Everything. What the hell did that mean? I turned the page. Frank, if you are reading this alone, then I am gone, and our daughter has started trying to control your life. I prayed I was wrong about her, but I don't think I am. Outside, thunder rolled across the city. The old house creaked softly around me, and for the first time since Lorraine died, I felt afraid inside my own home. Lorraine's handwriting grew shakier farther down the page. 3 years ago, Emily borrowed money from us again. You remember she said it was for business taxes. It wasn't. I found gambling charges on her credit card statements, online casinos, sports betting, private debt transfers. At first I thought it was temporary. Then the withdrawals became larger, more desperate. I stopped breathing for a second. Emily? Gambling? My daughter wore tailored suits and drove a Lexus. She volunteered at charity galas. Perfect smile. Perfect husband. Perfect suburban life. But suddenly memories started changing shape inside my head. Missed birthdays. Late-night panic calls. Constant money stress, despite her 6-figure salary. Lorraine continued. I paid several of her debts secretly, because she begged me not to tell you. That was my mistake. I confused protecting her with enabling her, and now I fear she sees us less as parents, and more as exits from her consequences. I closed my eyes. Jesus Christ. Now, let me tell you something. Parents have a dangerous habit. We keep updating the image of our children using old photographs. We still see the little girl with scraped knees, even when she becomes someone capable of breaking your heart professionally. I kept reading. 6 months ago, Emily asked me detailed questions about the house deed, retirement accounts, insurance policies, and your medical directives. Not casually, strategically. When I asked why, she became angry, very angry. That frightened me more than the questions themselves. The next page contained printed screenshots stapled into the notebook. Bank transfers, loan notices, collection warnings. Amounts so large my stomach turned. $80,000, $140,000, $220,000. How in God's name had she buried herself this deep? Then I saw a name repeated over and over. Blackthorn Financial Recovery Services. I didn't know what it was, but Lorraine had circled it twice in red ink. Underneath, she wrote only 4 words. These men scare me. Suddenly, my quiet little life didn't feel quiet anymore. This wasn't just greed. This smelled like desperation. And desperate people do dangerous things. My phone buzzed again. Emily. Then immediately again. And again. 3 calls back to back. I didn't answer. Instead, I walked to the front window. A black SUV sat across the street under the rain. Engine running. Headlights off. Maybe coincidence. Maybe not. But old instincts started waking up inside me. Pipefitters spend decades around pressure systems. You learn how to sense danger before the explosion. Then my phone lit up with a text. Dad, please don't make this harder than it needs to be. Harder for who? That was the moment I realized something chilling. My daughter wasn't acting alone, and whatever trouble she was in, it was already standing outside my house. I did not sleep that night. Not really. I sat in Lorraine's recliner with the lights off and her notebook open on my lap, while rain crawled down the windows like nervous fingers. Every sound felt wrong. The refrigerator humming, pipes ticking, floorboards settling upstairs. At 72, you learn fear differently. Young men fear violence. Old men fear helplessness. At 2:13 inches the morning, the black SUV finally drove away. Slowly. No headlights. Just disappearing into the wet Pittsburgh dark like it had never been there at all. I wrote down the license plate anyway. Old Union habit. Document everything. Lorraine's notebook contained more than letters. Tucked into the back pocket was a flash drive. Tiny thing. Black plastic. No label. My hands felt cold holding it. I almost plugged it in immediately. Almost. But instinct stopped me, because suddenly I could hear Lorraine's voice inside my head. Frank, slow down. Think first. She always said I rushed emotionally when family was involved. Funny. I spent 40 years believing she was the emotional one. Turns out, she had been the strategist. At dawn, I drove across town to visit somebody I had not spoken to in almost 8 years. Harold Mercer, retired homicide detective, Vietnam veteran, mean-looking bastard with the gentlest dog on earth. We used to fish together before life got busy and our wives got sick. Harold opened the door wearing sweatpants and carrying a coffee mug the size of a flower pot. Frank Delaney. You look terrible. Good morning to you too. An hour later, we sat in his basement office while rain hammered the windows. I handed him Lorraine's notebook. Harold read silently for nearly 20 minutes. No interruptions. No reactions. Just those tired detective eyes moving line by line. Finally, he leaned back. Your daughter is drowning. I know. No. He pointed at the debt totals. I mean drowning. People don't rack up numbers like this with normal lenders. He tapped the name circled in red. Blackthorn Financial. Never heard of them officially, but unofficially. They're bad news. Loan sharks? Worse. Predatory recovery group. Legal on paper. Dirty underneath. They buy gambling debt. Pressure collections. Asset leverage. Asset leverage. My house. My retirement. Me. Harold plugged the flash drive into his computer. A single folder appeared. Emily. Inside were photographs. Dozens of them. Emily entering casinos. Meeting strange men in parking garages. Handing envelopes through car windows. My stomach twisted harder with every image. Then came screenshots. Texts. Bank statements. Voicemails. Lorraine had been documenting everything. Quietly. Carefully. like she knew one day I'd need proof instead of heartbreak. One voicemail made Harold pause. "You sure you want to hear this?" I nodded. The recording crackled softly. Then Emily's voice filled the room. "Mom, please. I just need another month. If they come after me again, Tyler is going to find out everything." Then Lorraine. "Emily, your father can never know about this." Another pause. Then Emily whispered something that turned my blood to ice. "If Dad dies before the refinance clears, none of this matters anyway." The room went completely silent. Even Harold stopped moving. My daughter, my little girl, talking about my death like a delayed bank transaction. Now let me say something. There are moments in life when love doesn't disappear. It mutates. It becomes grief while the person is still alive. That's what I felt sitting there. Not hatred. Something worse. Mourning. Harold shut off the recording carefully. "Frank, you need a lawyer immediately. And you need to stop being alone. Because whatever this turned into, your daughter already crossed lines decent people don't cross." By noon, the rain finally stopped. But the pressure inside my chest kept building. Not medical pressure. Something heavier. The feeling that my entire life had been quietly rearranged while I wasn't looking. Harold insisted on driving me home. "You could be overreacting," he admitted. "But old cops survive by respecting bad feelings. And I got a bad feeling." When we pulled onto my street, my front door was open, just slightly, maybe 3 inches, enough to stop my breathing. I know for a fact I locked it. Old men double-check locks constantly. It's practically a religion. Harold saw it too. "Stay in the car." He reached beneath his jacket. Small revolver. Retirement hadn't softened him much. We entered slowly. The house smelled wrong. Not robbery. Not destruction. Perfume. Emily's perfume. Vanilla and expensive flowers. Nothing looked stolen. Nothing overturned. But small things had moved. Desk drawers slightly open. Cabinet doors crooked. Paper stacks disturbed. Someone had searched the house carefully. Then I saw Lorraine's sewing room. The closet door stood open. Boxes pulled down. Fabric everywhere. And Lorraine's notebook. Gone. Harold muttered something under his breath. "Your daughter was here." I felt strangely calm. Not because I wasn't angry. Because the last tiny piece of denial finally died. My phone rang instantly. Emily, almost like she knew we'd arrived. I answered without speaking. "Dad." Her voice sounded shaky now. Not confident anymore. "I need to come over tonight so we can talk face to face." "About what?" Another pause. "Mom's things." "Her things?" "Yes. Especially any papers or notebooks she may have left behind." There it was. Finally honest. I walked slowly into the kitchen. Harold stayed quiet beside me. Emily lowered her voice. "Dad, these people Lorraine was investigating. You don't understand how dangerous they are." My grip tightened on the phone. "Investigating?" Interesting choice of words. Suddenly, Emily sounded less like a predator, and more like somebody terrified. That confused me, until she whispered 6 words that changed everything again. "They think you have the money." "What money?" Heavy breathing on the line. Then finally, "Mom hid something before she died." My entire body went cold. What did Lorraine hide? Emily started crying softly. Real crying this time. "Dad, please. You need to listen carefully. Tyler borrowed from people he shouldn't have. A lot. And when he couldn't pay, they found out about your retirement accounts. About the house. About Mom's investments. Tyler, my son-in-law, the smiling financial consultant with polished shoes and politician teeth. Jesus Christ." Emily kept talking through tears. "Mom discovered everything 6 months ago. She moved money somewhere before they could touch it. Tyler's been trying to find it ever since. And now they think you know where it is." Outside, a car door slammed somewhere down the street. Harold looked toward the window immediately. Instinct. Pure detective instinct. Then he whispered quietly, "Frank, we got company." A dark blue sedan rolled slowly past the house. Too slowly. The kind of slow that isn't driving. It's hunting. Harold killed the kitchen lights instantly. "Stay away from the windows." I hadn't felt adrenaline like this since the steel mill explosion back in '83. Old fear woke up fast. Sharp. Ancient. Emily was still on the phone crying. "Dad, please answer me. Are you alone?" I looked at Harold, No, good. Listen carefully. Tyler disappeared this morning. What? He took 200,000 from Blackthorn. Maybe more. They think Lorraine moved family assets before he could access them. Family assets again. Amazing how criminals dress greed in professional language. The sedan circled the block a second time. Harold quietly peeked through the blinds. Two men, both watching the house. Not random. Emily's voice dropped lower. Dad, Mom left something for you. Not just the notebook. There's another file. A safety deposit box downtown. She told me never to touch it unless something happened to her. Or you. Suddenly, pieces started locking together. Lorraine wasn't simply documenting Emily's gambling. She was building protection. For me. Where is Tyler now? I don't know. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I believed her. Because fear has a sound, and Emily sounded terrified down to the bone. Then she whispered something unexpected. Dad, Mom was trying to save you from me. That one nearly broke me. Not because it shocked me. Because somewhere deep down, I already knew. Harold motioned toward the hallway. Phone. Now. I handed it over. He spoke calmly. Emily, this is Harold Mercer, retired homicide. Listen carefully. If you know who's outside this house right now, you start talking immediately. Silence. Then Emily inhaled sharply. Oh my God. They're really there? Harold's eyes hardened. Who are they? Another pause. Then finally. Collectors. Collectors. Such a polite word for men who destroy lives. Emily explained everything in fragments. Tyler built secret gambling debts for years. Sports betting. Crypto losses. Underground poker games. Every time Emily helped him recover, he dug deeper, until Blackthorn owned him completely. And, 6 months earlier, Tyler offered them collateral. My house, my retirement accounts, my future, without my knowledge. Lorraine discovered it accidentally while reviewing tax records during chemotherapy treatments. She confronted Tyler privately, and that's when things got ugly. Dad, Mom was scared of him near the end. That sentence hollowed me out. Lorraine had been dying, and hiding fear on top of pain. Alone. The sedan stopped directly across from my driveway, engine idling, waiting. Harold reached for his phone. We're done reacting quietly now. He dialed somebody immediately. Old police contacts. Meanwhile, I walked slowly into Lorraine's sewing room again. Fabric scattered everywhere. Drawers emptied. But then, I noticed something strange. One floorboard near her sewing machine looked slightly raised. My pulse quickened. I knelt carefully, slid my fingers underneath, and lifted. Inside the compartment sat a metal cash box, dusty, heavy, locked, and taped to the top. A single envelope in Lorraine's handwriting. For Frank only. Do not trust Tyler. My hands shook as I carried the metal box into the kitchen. Not from age, from realization. Lorraine had been fighting a war inside this house while I sat 10 feet away reading newspapers and pretending retirement was peace. Harold examined the lock. Simple latch. Old-fashioned. He grabbed a screwdriver from my junk drawer. 30 seconds later, the lid popped open. Inside were 3 things. A thick stack of documents. A small revolver. And a VHS tape. A VHS tape. Jesus. I had not seen one in years. A strip of masking tape across the front read, "If Tyler comes after Frank." The room went dead silent. Outside, the sedan still idled across the street. Watching. Waiting. Harold picked up the revolver carefully. Loaded. Lorraine was ready for war. No. I swallowed hard. Lorraine was preparing for survival. The documents were worse. Property transfer drafts. Forged signatures. Insurance policy modification requests. Tyler had been trying to move pieces quietly for months. And buried in the middle, one unsigned form transferring partial ownership of my house to Emily and Tyler after medical incapacitation review. They were building legal pathways around me while I was still alive. Slowly. Professionally. Like termites eating through a foundation. Harold slid the VHS tape into an old player he still kept in storage downstairs. Static flickered across the screen. Then Lorraine appeared. Thin. Pale. Wrapped in a blue cardigan. Chemotherapy had hollowed her cheeks. But her eyes were sharp as broken glass. Frank, if you're watching this, Then things became worse than I hoped. I felt my throat close instantly, because she looked directly into the camera the same way she used to look at me when she knew I was lying. Soft, sad, certain. Lorraine inhaled slowly. I know this is difficult to hear, but Tyler is dangerous. Not violent in the obvious way. Worse. He makes people feel safe while he empties them. Money, trust, dignity. The camera shook slightly. She was weak. Very weak. I should have told you sooner, but I was afraid your anger would make you confront him before we had proof. And Frank, you always protect family first, even when family does not deserve protection. That sentence cut deep because it was true. Lorraine continued. Emily is not innocent, but she is trapped. Tyler isolated her slowly over years, controlled finances, created debt in both their names, made her believe exposure would destroy the children. She became desperate, and desperate people start confusing survival with morality. My chest tightened. Emily wasn't simply greedy. She was drowning beside him. Then Lorraine leaned closer toward the camera. Listen carefully. There is evidence inside safety deposit box 417 at First National downtown. Everything Tyler fears is inside. Bank records, audio recordings, offshore transfers, and names? Names that powerful people would kill to keep hidden. Harold paused the tape, looked at me carefully. Frank, this just became federal-level ugly. Before I could answer, headlights suddenly flooded the living room windows. The sedan had pulled into my driveway. 3 men stepped out of the car. Dark jackets, calm faces. The dangerous kind of calm. Not drunk thugs. Professionals. 1 stayed near the vehicle. 2 approached the front porch slowly. Harold muttered quietly, "Stay behind me." A knock echoed through the house. Not aggressive, controlled. That scared me more. The taller man spoke through the door. "Mr. Delaney, we just want to have a conversation." Funny thing about dangerous men. They always say conversation right before destruction. Harold opened the door halfway. Badge instinct still alive in every movement. "Can I help you?" The tall man smiled politely. "We are looking for Tyler Brennan. Never heard of him." Wrong answer. The smile disappeared instantly. Then the man's eyes shifted past Harold. Found me standing in the hallway. "Mr. Delaney, there you are." He spoke gently, almost respectfully. "Your son-in-law made agreements tied to family assets. We are simply trying to resolve misunderstandings professionally. Professionally again. Everybody becomes professional once money enters the room." I stepped forward slowly. My wife died 3 months ago, and somehow strangers are sitting outside my house because my family used my retirement as casino chips. So, let me simplify this. Get off my property. The second man smirked slightly. Old man still got teeth. Harold's voice turned colder. "Leave. Now." For a second, nobody moved. Then the tall man sighed softly. "Mr. Delaney, your late wife complicated matters before her passing, but eventually all accounts settle, one way or another." That was not a threat. Real threats sound emotional. This sounded administrative, like death already existed on paperwork somewhere. Then my phone rang. "Emily." I answered instantly. "Dad, Tyler's there." "How do you know?" "Because he just texted me. He said if you give them the evidence, everything goes away." Everything goes away. Meaning me too, probably. Suddenly, another voice shouted outside. "Police. Everybody stay where you are." Harold's old contacts moved fast. 2 squad cars screeched onto the street. The men backed away immediately. Calm. Disciplined. Like this wasn't their first time walking away from trouble. As officers approached, the tall man looked directly at me one final time. "Your wife was smarter than most people. That's why she died scared." Something inside me snapped. Not rage. Clarity. Lorraine spent her final months terrified, and I never noticed. Never asked the right questions. Never saw the exhaustion hiding behind her smile. That guilt settled into my bones harder than fear ever could. Because monsters are dangerous. But blindness. Blindness destroys families quietly. The next 48 hours exploded. FBI interviews. Financial investigators. Federal subpoenas. Suddenly, my quiet Pittsburgh street looked like a television crime drama. Black SUVs. Agents and windbreakers. Neighbors pretending not to stare. The safety deposit box changed everything. Lorraine had documented years of fraud, illegal betting networks, debt laundering, property targeting schemes focused on elderly homeowners. Tyler wasn't just gambling. He was recruiting vulnerable retirees into fraudulent investment traps connected to debt leverage operations. My son-in-law built his entire career stealing from old people. And somehow, that hurt even more than what he did to me, because I spent 40 years working brutal union jobs beside men who counted pennies before retirement, men who trusted advisors like Tyler, men who thought polished smiles meant integrity. Emily arrived at the house late Thursday night, alone, no makeup, eyes swollen, looking older than her 46 years. She stood on the porch for nearly a full minute before knocking, like she already knew the old version of her life was gone forever. I opened the door. Neither of us spoke immediately. Then she started crying. Real crying. Ugly crying. The kind grief pulls out of people when denial finally dies. Dad, I never wanted this. I believed her. And somehow that made it worse. She sat at the kitchen table where Lorraine used to drink tea every night. Same chair. Same light above her head. Emily looked around slowly. Mom knew before I did. Knew what Tyler really was. I stayed quiet, because sometimes silence forces truth into the room better than questions. Emily wiped her face. The gambling started small. Then investments failed. Then loans. Every time I tried leaving him, he reminded me the children would lose everything. The house, school, their future. So I kept helping him fix problems. And every fix became another lie. That's how corruption really happens most times. Not evil people waking up evil, just weak people making frightened decisions repeatedly. Then Emily looked directly at me. Mom told me something before she died. She said, "Your father forgives too easily. Don't mistake that for weakness." My throat tightened instantly. That sounded exactly like Lorraine. Emily broke again. "Dad, I signed those hospital papers because Tyler convinced me your surgery would trigger medical review delays and release emergency equity access. I didn't even fully understand what I was signing anymore." There it was. The truth. Not murder. Not hatred. Cowardice. Manipulation. Fear. Sometimes human weakness destroys lives more efficiently than cruelty ever could. I looked at my daughter for a long time, then asked the question that mattered most. "Did you ever actually stop loving me?" Emily collapsed completely. "No." And that was the tragedy. Because love without courage becomes useless when darkness arrives. Tyler Brennan was arrested 2 weeks later in Cleveland, trying to cross into Canada using fake identification. Turns out, men who build their lives on deception panic badly once the lights come on. Blackthorn Financial disappeared almost overnight. Federal seizures. Frozen accounts. Closed offices. Like cockroaches scattering once somebody opens the basement door. Emily cooperated with investigators fully. She avoided prison. Barely. But consequences still came. Divorce. Public disgrace. Years rebuilding trust with her children. And with me. Now, before I finish this story, let me say something important. People love simple villains. Real life rarely gives them. Most families don't explode in one dramatic moment. They erode slowly. Tiny compromises. Tiny silences. Tiny lies repeated long enough to become architecture. 3 months after Tyler's arrest, I finally cleaned out Lorraine's sewing room. Not because I was ready, because grief never really asks permission. At the bottom drawer of her desk, I found one final letter. Short, only 6 lines. "Frank, if you are reading this, then somehow we survived another storm. Please don't spend the rest of your life angry. Pain travels through families like wildfire, unless somebody chooses to stop carrying the flame. Love harder than fear. Always. Your Lorraine." I cried harder reading that letter than I did at her funeral, because, even after everything, she was still trying to save us. These days the house feels different. Not healed. Homes don't heal. People do. Slowly. Emily visits every Sunday now with the grandkids. Sometimes we talk about Lorraine. Sometimes we don't. But we stop pretending. That's the important part. And every evening, right before sunset, I sit on the back porch with Lorraine's old blanket over my knees and watch the Pittsburgh sky turn gold behind the smokestacks. The city still looks tired. So do I. But not empty anymore. Because in the end, the real inheritance Lorraine left behind was not money, not the house, not the evidence. It was truth, painful truth, the kind that burns everything rotten away and leaves only what deserves to survive. Now, if you're still listening to this story tonight, call somebody you love. Ask one real question, not how was your day. Ask, what are you carrying alone lately? You might be surprised how long the people closest to you have been drowning quietly. And if somebody in your life still chooses love over greed, hold on to them. That kind of person is rarer than money will ever be.